I'd like to start by offering a few welcomes. And I think most importantly, we would like to acknowledge that the land we meet on today is the traditional lands of the Kaurna people. And we respect their spiritual relationship to their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the traditional custodians of the Adelaide region, and their cultural and heritage beliefs are as important to the living Kaurna people as they were today. I'd like to start by welcoming the Lord Mayor, the Right Honourable Martin Haese, to open our conference today. For those of you who don't know, Adelaide is embarking on a strategic journey to become the world's first carbon neutral city. Obviously, walking and cycling are going to play a key and pivotal role in that. So as we move forward, we need to think about the role that that's going to play and how we as advocates and educators and facilitators and practitioners can see this in this city and other cities, indeed around the world. So I'd like to open the floor now to the Lord Mayor and welcome. It's great to have you here. And I know that the Adelaide City Council has been a great supporter of this conference over the years, and we look forward to obviously continuing in future support. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. Good morning, everyone. And I too acknowledge that we meet on Kaurna land and we pay respect to elders past and present. Well, happy Monday morning. It's good to have you all here. It's a great way to start the week. I'd like to acknowledge, of course, the organising committee who's brought everyone together. Thank you and well done. That's terrific. Sponsors, volunteers, everyone. Those that have come from intrastate, interstate and even overseas, a very, very special welcome to Adelaide. So it's always good to have people coming into Adelaide to learn ideas, share experiences, meet new friends, and importantly, kind of really begin to think about what type of future we're working towards creating here in our beautiful city of Adelaide. So last week I was at the World City Summit in Singapore. Now this happens every year, and every second year it's held in Singapore, who really started this World City Summit movement. But I have to say, these recurring themes of livable cities, sustainable transport, low carbon economies just keep coming back to us. Wherever we go, wherever I go. You read this in the media yourselves. You hear about this over coffee tables and cafes. I mean, these are really, I think, the hot topics of today. And there were 122 mayors representing, obviously, 122 cities. But there were, I believe, up to 20,000 people at this conference last week in Singapore. So it was a big thing, a very, very big thing. And there were just speakers from all over the world talking about practice in terms of what cities are doing in the sustainable transport place, in the low carbon economy, and just this whole, what I call the sustainability movement. So now, walking and cycling. I'm just going to very briefly share my own credentials in this space. I'm a great walker. I kind of walk to 90% of where I go. I walk to work, I walk home from work, I walk to most of my appointments whenever I can. Because with my crazy schedule, it is my fitness regime, I must say. But it's also thinking time. And in my role, when you're walking through the city, you pick up things, you meet people, you have brief conversations, and you see things. So it keeps your job, I think, very grounded. Keeps your feet on the ground, and it's very relevant. You can see room for improvement wherever you go. And I think I'm a great advocate of kind of the whole walking experience. I'm a former, what I would call probably a long-distance cyclist. Rode Adelaide, Melbourne. I've rode pretty well the circumference of Tasmania. I don't recommend it. It's the most hilly place in the world. And then I rode back Melbourne to Adelaide a few years ago. And that was a great experience. I'm not sure I'd ever be fit enough to repeat it, but it was terrific. And I did that with a whole group of people some years back. But it was great fun, I must say, absolutely great fun. Now, Jeremy touched upon livability. So many things feed into this whole notion of livability. Adelaide is the 5th most livable city in the world, as voted by The Economist. And that is a great accolade for Adelaide, I think, but something that we, not for a second, can be complacent about. So we have a goal by 2020 to become the 3rd most livable city in the world, on our way, at some point in time, to becoming the most livable city in the world, a mantle which is currently carried by Melbourne. But interestingly, Australian cities and Canadian cities, when you talk about livability, are always right up there in terms of the top 5 and the top 10. We seem to dominate the top 10 cities when it comes to livability. Now, how do we get there? How do we get from where we are today to take us further up that leaderboard in terms of livability, and what does that mean to you? We've just launched a strategic plan, which is like a 4-point plan, which is really informing everything we do between now and 2020. And it's about being a city that is smart, green, livable, and creative. And that smart, green, livable, and creative focus is informing our budgets, our programs, our organisational structure, what goes through our council chamber, the decisions we make, where we put our funds in terms of resourcing various programs. So smart city is very much about technology. And technology, of course, when it comes to cities, is absolutely fundamental towards improving the city experience. You may have read earlier, those that are from Adelaide, that we're working on a gig city project, which is all about delivering ultra-fast data to the commercial sector in the City of Adelaide. So think about NBN as your baseline, and then think 10 to 100 times faster for the CBD of Adelaide. It would quite squarely give Adelaide a competitive advantage nationally. We're not the only city in the world to do this, but we would be the only city in Australia to do this. And it would be actually quite transformational in terms of many, many things. Then green. And as Jeremy said, Adelaide has got a goal to become a carbon neutral city. And along that journey, we hope we're going to be the first. Now, if you look at carbon neutrality, there are 3 key areas that create carbon. It's what's happening on your city streets, what's happening in your energy grid, and what's coming out of your buildings. Only 3. In fact, there's a myriad of other things in terms of how we recycle waste and a lot of things. But the big 3 are streets, buildings, and grid. And interestingly, we're doing well on the big 3, and that's why Adelaide is actually well positioned. 47% of what's happening in our grid is renewable. It's the highest on mainland Australia by a very, very comfortable margin. But it's not the highest in Australia because, of course, Tasmania uses hydro, and they have for some years. And hydro produces about 80 to 90% of their energy for that state. But mainland Australia, we are way ahead, especially in terms of our adoption of renewables, which is wind and solar. But also, we have decoupled, and this is a very, very important point to make, that there are cities around the world who have a goal, like we do, for carbon neutrality, or otherwise known as net zero emissions. However, they have not coupled, and what that means practically is that we can, as a city, empirically prove that our economy can grow, and at the same time, our carbon footprint can decline. So if you look from 2007, we've had cumulatively 28% GDP growth in Adelaide, and we've had a reduction in our carbon footprint by 20%. So we've got graphs going in 2 different directions, and I like to describe that as the Holy Grail, because there are cities that are growing, but their carbon footprint is chasing them up at the same time. We have decoupled. We're also doing well in the partnership stakes. So something which to you and to me might seem very practical and obvious to do, but we have a very strong collaborative working relationship with the state government when it comes to our carbon neutral goal. What I have learnt at many of these conferences, for example, World City Summit in Singapore, and for example, the COP21 in Paris in December, which I spoke at, is that many city governments, when it comes to climate, spend more time arguing with their state or provincial or federal government than agreeing with them. because politics gets in the way. We have been very, very, very focused ensuring we've got a very collaborative working relationship with the state, because you have to. You absolutely have to when it comes to affecting mitigation and adaptation measures when it comes to climate change. And it's just a shame that many cities and many states and many countries don't do that. So, which means, in short, we are well positioned. Now, what does carbon neutrality mean to Adelaide? What does it mean to what happens on the streets in Adelaide on a Monday morning? It actually means a great deal. It means that, one, it'll be a very good means of us achieving a greater ranking in terms of livability. Livability means a lot in terms of tourism, leisure tourism, conferencing, like what we're doing here today. Many people coming into Adelaide to learn, how did that city achieve world's first carbon neutral city? What technologies did they embrace? What government policy did they implement? How did they take their community along that journey with them? And how did their community appreciate what that really means to their daily lives? So I'd like to say that environmentally, it makes a great deal of sense. Who doesn't want to live in a more sustainable environment? Who doesn't want to pass on our patch of the earth, leaving it better than what we found it to our next generation? There wouldn't be anyone in the room that would debate me on that one, I hope. However, it means a lot more than that too. It means a great deal more than that too. It actually is quite a compelling economic argument for the very sustainability of the South Australian economy. As we move from an old economy to a new economy, and I know that sounds like a bit of a catch-all, but this is about positioning Adelaide well for the new industries, the industries of tomorrow, which will be underpinned by infrastructure such as super fast internet speeds in the CBD. But we think it'll attract more residents to live in the city. We're certainly seeing quite a bit of growth in that area. We're seeing about 1,000 new residents come into the city every year. We think it would be an absolute boon for conferencing. We think it'd be terrific for our universities in terms of positioning Adelaide as a thought leader globally on sustainability, because sustainability is so multifaceted. Sustainability will affect transport planning, city planning, building design, building materials, construction methods. It will affect procurement, brand, marketing, communications, technology, startups, venture capitalists. It just goes on and on and on in terms of what the benefits could be for our city if we were to achieve carbon neutrality. Our third pillar is livability. And there's a great movement out there about livable cities. And one of the key parts of building and maintaining and sustaining a livable city is sustainable transport. And that comes in many fashions. Let's look at trams. Only 2 weeks ago, we announced in conjunction with the state government that we're extending the light rail network in Adelaide, along North Terrace down to the old Royal Adelaide Hospital site. That is great for sustainable transport, because of course they are electric. They're drawing on the grid, and there's 47% of our grid, and growing, is coming from renewable sources. So you can see how these things begin to fit each other to help us get us to our carbon neutral goal. But it's also about a walking city and a cycling city. And these are absolutely fundamental to reasons why people come to cities, enjoy cities, want to experience cities, and want to live in cities. If you look at the data, there is 2,450 approvals on apartments in the City of Adelaide as we sit here this morning, of which over the next few years will be built. The data is showing that the growth in the number of apartment sales in the city who do not have a car park is growing faster than you can possibly imagine. And I think that's quite compelling. 10 years ago, that would have been probably inconceivable. Now people want to live in the city because it's a walkable city, it's a safe city, it's a friendly city, it's a cycling friendly city. And they're saving themselves $55,000 every time they don't buy a car park or incorporate a car park into the purchase price of their apartment. And if they want 2 car parks, that's $110 to their apartment. So I think the maths are pretty compelling too. And then you've got walkability to the central market, walkability to the riverbank, Adelaide Oval, the cultural institutions along North Terrace, Rundle Mall, the cafes, the restaurants, the main streets, the parklands of course, and everything else. So I think because of our compact nature, we are so well positioned in Adelaide at the moment in terms of bringing all these things, which on the surface of them might sound a little bit disparate, but they're actually part of the same, conversation. Sustainable, livable cities are built by good transport, walkability, great cycling infrastructure. We have laid down in recent years 35 kilometres of cycling lanes throughout the City of Adelaide. And there's more to come. And we're working currently with the state government, which we hope in months to come, quite soon, we'll be making announcements about making further improvements to cycling infrastructure around the city. One thing I think Adelaide lacks is a point-to-point cycling system. Many cities have them. You've probably used them. People love them. Tourists love them. Locals love them. We've got great cycling facilities, but we don't have a point-to-point system where you can jump on a bike and you can leave it at the other end. So I think we need to collaborate with surrounding council areas to take that opportunity beyond the CBD, beyond North Adelaide, and take it throughout metropolitan Adelaide. So that's something we're certainly working on. So our job, in many ways, at a local government, at a capital city local government area, is to deliver good infrastructure on the ground. We've partnered with the state government in terms of the tram project along North Terrace. We're partnering with the state government to do a network of laneways between the Central Market and the Adelaide Railway Station, and they will all be upgraded to make sure they're more walking friendly and more cycling friendly. We've put $7.5 million into that. We announced that 3 weeks ago. That'll be rolled out in the next 18 months. Also, we're doing improvements to Gawler Place, which will connect Grenfell Street through to North Terrace, through to Kintore Avenue, which takes people down to the river. It's a very, very important walking experience in Adelaide, because we also contributed to an Anzac project along Kintore Avenue, which is a beautiful streetscape enhancement. So I think there's this opportunity here for beautiful streets, walkable streets, sustainable transport, and then demand for people wanting to live and work and visit the City of Adelaide. I look at this very much as a bit of a classic win-win. If you make your city more livable, if you make your city greener, if you make your city carbon neutral, if you improve your mixed-use transport, more people want to live and work and invest and just do and visit your city. It just makes sense on so many, many levels. So but we cannot ever be, I think, complacent about it. I think it's a mayor's job to work with the state, to work with fellow councillors and elected members, to work with other mayors through metropolitan Adelaide, to have a shared focus, and especially those councils that are adjoining the City of Adelaide. Very, very important. So I certainly do work very closely with fellow mayors throughout metropolitan Adelaide and asking questions like, would you be interested in this? Maybe there'd be an opportunity for us to partner on something like a bike share program. So there is a lot to do, but I genuinely think with some great enthusiasm that Adelaide is very, very well positioned when it comes to a very clean, green and sustainable future. And when people say, what does carbon neutrality mean? It means an enormous amount to the very, very future of the City of Adelaide, not only environmentally, but also economically. So thank you very much. I hope you have a terrific conference. I'll be staying with you a little bit this morning. I look forward to listening to the speakers, and it's great to have you in Adelaide for those that have come from regional South Australia and interstate. Thank you very much.